They would unalive someone just with the smallest suspicion of a crime.
Anyone would do that back then. The Carthaginians.
Also, maybe they did, but we just can't find those.
The Phoenicians would do that. The Celts would do that.
Letters.
The Germanic tribes would do that. Everyone would kill you for literally the slightest thing. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, if you're teaching students, it's likely you're going to get unalive anyway. Why not write it down what the things well teach these students? Why not get them to spread the message around with writing as well? Because writing preserves the knowledge. You can always typewrite.
But paper was also scarce.
Yeah.
Make copies upon copies.
Also, John also already disproves that claim you made earlier, because John took on many students, right? He orally taught a lot, but because there's no way to trace back oral teaching, definitively, he died of old age instead of being unalive. While all the other apostles, who didn't wait near the end of their life to start writing, they all got crucified upside down and skinned alive and stuff.
And but what preserves the knowledge, or what has the best chance of preserving the knowledge, writing it down, or the teaching the people that might get found out by the Romans?
Teaching students. That's the best way, and then telling them to also make students. That's why we have apostolic
When Ireland was under rule of Protestants by the British, they of course they had some oral lessons up in the wood, but gathering was incredibly easy to notice. They had to hide their gatherings, so they preferred to especially keep the Roman Catholic books. They'd also they preserved the knowledge while having their moral lessons or their gatherings right. The gatherings are very easy to detect, and the act of having the book isn't punishable by death, but the act of practicing the book was. So while they would somehow have small gatherings, and that was punishable by death, they also kept writing, and they would write their own copy of the Bibles as well, and keep them there just for little keeps, safe keeps. They maybe keep some verses in their pockets, whatever. It seems more likely to me that you want to write it down and hide the transcript somewhere, and then get it out later on. Then risk the lives of everyone that you're teaching as well.
Actually, that's incorrect, because during the reign of Emperor Nero, he would unalive Christians just for having Christian texts. But we have people like the Desert Fathers who congregated and gathered together in far off deserts so that no Roman officials could find them when Christianity was illegal. And they would come back, and they managed to survive doing this and still gather together. But let's say these Desert Fathers go and have a congregation, they meet up together in the desert, and then they write something, and then they bring that back, and they're found by a Roman official. What's going to happen?
But also you just keep the knowledge for yourself. Exactly. The time of the Emperor's past. But again, that goes back to the problem with all the apostles. Well, they're doing oral teachings. Why not just write it down at the same time?
Well, because then they're risking their life, and that can end their ministry.
Well, hold on, if you're doing these meetings, right? Is the pencil louder than the voice? Or however people back then, was the pen louder than the voice?
Not necessarily.
The desert. When he's talking about the Desert Fathers, they're going to
But they're going back to the apostles that all taught just after Jesus. I get the analogies. Fair enough. But also, they could still write it down, and there wouldn't just be as much of a risk for their life if they just write it down.
They're talking about the entire life of one man. It's not going to be like they can just write down all of that and get it over with. There's so many teachings from the apostles that we needed that aren't even in the Bible. We have to get them from the students.
So, not the entire life, I get what you're saying, but I think a lot of the younger years of Yeshua's unaccounted for.
Yeah, but there are tons of teachings from Jesus that we needed that were not written down by the apostles. We had to get them from the students. So if they passed away because they decided to write early on, right, and they got caught somehow, then we would have no way to get all these other teachings that we needed that they were just unable to pass down because they already passed away from trying to write.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and that seems one. But the other thing is I can validate a lot of the teachings that came from the ones that met himself. Fair enough, it's you have to take their word for it, honestly, right? But it's going through the students. How do I know they haven't made up certain events?
Yeah, so the early church had a way to verify this through what we call the laying of hands. We have attestation from people who were confirmed into being students of the apostles or successors of the apostles through the patriarchal hierarchy and through the archbishops and bishops in the diocese. So there is a hierarchical structure to verify whether someone is truly who they were. So the apostles would ordain people as bishops, right? And then when those apostles passed away, these bishops would gather together and ordain one of these bishops into the patriarchal see. This patriarchal see has to account for every bishop, every priest, every successor of the apostles. So if someone claimed that they were a successor of the apostles or a student of the apostles, but patriarchs would deny this, and that was proof that they weren't actually a successor of the apostles.
I mean, that wasn't really what I was asking. I agree that they probably were students of the apostles, right? That's not what I was denying. It's more, how do I know that they're telling the truth, the success of the apostles? They could have made up a story that we don't, and we have no way to prove it or back it, that they didn't make up these stories or something.
We do this through the apostolic consensus. Like, I'll give an example, right? Hippolytus of Rome and his apostolic traditions. I mean, these are traditions he was passed down from the apostle Peter, right? He says that we are to be baptized with no clothes on. However, if you go to the other successors of all these different apostles, like for instance John, Matthew, Andrew, right? You'll see that none of them taught that we should be baptized with clothes on. So we're able to know what the apostles truly taught, or whether something got skewed later on by apostolic consensus, because these people taught in completely different regions. That's why we have like the Roman See, the